Welcome into the Blogger Bowl Week 3 edition. Some people might say this is a down week in college football, that there aren't many big potential matchups. I think every one of us here disagree for different reasons. We got the ultimate trolling move with one game we have going on with a former coach coming back. We might have a dead mascot game inside of a dead mascot season. We got Phil and I just wearing a whole bunch of green. Dan's confused. I think I might have Dan stumped on this one. I'm not sure he quite knows about it yet. We'll get to it.
But the double death.
We'll get to it in my card. I'm worried that double death might cancel out. The double negative is a positive. I don't know. We'll see. But before we get Dan, let's see the home shirt. What do we got?
The best one I own. I forgot.
Oh, I love it.
I put the list together and forgot to put the LSU Mississippi State game on our list of games today. So I've done no research on it, but
we'll throw that in as the communal interesting game after we get through the big slate. How about that?
Nothing on it, so.
But good to hear. How'd the cards turn out last week? But guys, I don't think we covered that on Tuesday.
I went 1-3, but I beat Matt head to head, so it's a winning week.
That's a good point. I don't be too proud of that. I didn't do very well. I think I was like 3-6.
I think I was 4-3.
Phil's positive. Phil might be the best bettor we have on the show here. Sorry, where do you guys want to start? You guys want to jump right into games? Anybody got some news, notes, college football things too before we jump into the week?
No, I think I'm ready to jump in, and I put together the rundown for the show, and I just went we're going chronological here in terms of what time these games start. So we'll start with in the game that I think might have just the most overall intrigue of the week. Number 6 Oklahoma at Nebraska, big noon Saturday. Oklahoma currently a 10.5-point favorite. 65.5 is the total there. The only thing I'll say on the total is there's expected to be 15-mile-per-hour winds, so it might be a windy day in Lincoln. I was thinking Lincoln is in Lincoln Riley and got confused. In Lincoln. So Phil, why don't you start us off? What are your thoughts here?
Well, before I knew it was windy, I really liked the over in this game. I like Oklahoma. I like Oklahoma's offense. I really love Dylan Gabriel. I like kind of Venables and Levy in their first like big game because I think they're veteran coaches. The one thing we got to factor in here is that I think Nebraska's going to fight pretty hard because the fact that they fired Frost this quickly in the season with that much left as part of the buyout must make me think that this was probably supported by the players because there is usually it must have been bad. So there's usually some component when something like this bad is happening. If the players are truly like vying for the coach, and if there are certain circumstances around the program where this could take a downturn if we fire this coach, maybe from the player perspective, I don't think that's the case. So I think they get a little bit of an interim bump in that circumstance, which oftentimes leads to, usually relatively like hot starts, maybe a turnover early, maybe some big plays from Casey Thompson. Because at this point, I think Nebraska is going into this game with, hey, our coach got fired. We don't have to play tense. We don't have a lot to lose by any capacity. So I think I like the points in this game. I still like Oklahoma later in this game. Again, I will have to check out the wind because maybe if it truly picks up and it's 15 miles an hour, Nebraska is not a place where there's much way to stop the wind. It turns out I've been there. It's pretty flat, just in general. I'm really curious to see how the fans are going to go at this game. Are they going to go at it from a sigh of relief, go absolutely ballistic now that their plague of a head coach is gone, their bad luck charm is gone, things are going to be turned around, get hot early, or is it going to be more of a funeral service? Again, all those things make this game so intriguing. So at the end of the day, when interim coaches like this happen, usually there's a bump in some capacity. So I think it's a bump from the offense because Nebraska's offense was bad last week, but hasn't been that bad in terms of yardage and points. So I think they're going to get interim bump, but I think the total hits, and I think Oklahoma comes out on top by, close-ish.
Yeah, I think I like a Nebraska first half line, maybe even sprinkle first half money line. I'd be lying if I said I'm probably not going to sprinkle their game money line here too. But I think whatever happens on those first couple drives will probably dictate what happens in this game. If Nebraska starts out hot and gets that turnover like you're talking about early, I think the crowd is going to be looking for any reason to get into it or get out of it, kind of either way. And whatever happens first might kind of dictate how that crowd is the rest of the way. You mentioned Levy and Venables. See how they do in their first big game? Not that Nebraska's offense has been bad, because it's probably been the one thing that's been going okay for him. I'm excited to see what Mark Whipple's doing without Scott Frost, calling him out in press conferences, breathing down his neck, putting pressure on him. I know he had a harsh critic in Pat Narduzzi last year at Pitt, and that's partially the reason why he left, in addition to some money. But kind of interested to see him with it's totally his show now. Let him kind of do what he wants to do and not have to worry about the head coach to answer to. Just it's kind of your gig. Go ahead and do it. Go score some points. So I'm excited to see a Nebraska team play looser than they have, because clearly they have not been playing loose since that onside. They started out the Northwestern game playing pretty loose. Then that onside kick happened, and a lot of things tightened up. And we've seen a different team since that point. So exactly, tightened up a little bit. So I'm excited to see a hopefully looser Nebraska team at home in a really big spot against the Oklahoma team that the scores look good so far, but we don't really know much about them yet.
Yeah, I'm glad you guys both went first, because you both hit on the two things that I'm kind of looking at with this game. This game kind of feels like a showcase game for the Nebraska program. And they've had one winning season since 2014. They're not in the fertile recruiting ground, All of the things that made Nebraska what it was in the 60s and the 90s is gone. So it's an opportunity for the program to really step up and show the world what Nebraska football can be. I think Trev Albert said it. The athletic director said it very well. He said, we needed to inject something to give them confidence. If you know the history of Nebraska football, saying they need to inject something is an interesting choice of words there. In a weird way, I feel like there's some parallels between Nebraska and Notre Dame, in that they're two historically great programs that have challenges in getting great players onto campus. And we've seen that Marcus Freeman, at least on the recruiting side of things, is really doing work. So that's what it's going to kind of take. It's going to take a dynamic kind of personality to be able to turn that program around. Scott Frost leaves, and then the typical thing that happens when a coach gets fired, everyone just empties the clip on him to the media anonymously, was showing up late to practice, wasn't calling the recruits. The assistants were going to the athletic director trying to get some help because they weren't getting it from him, so on and so forth. So yeah, I do think that this is an opportunity for them to really show everyone what they can be against a good opponent who, like you both said, haven't played anybody of note yet. I looked this up because I was a little bit curious, and these are specific parameters, but since 2015, in week 3, teams that are playing their first road game and playing their first Power 5 or ranked team are 6-7 against the spread, but 4 of those teams went to the playoff. So if Oklahoma covers this game and wins by a lot, that maybe bodes well for them. But I'm always interested to see how teams are going to be in these kinds of situations. Oklahoma had just a 14% success rate against Kent State. They allowed 11 havoc plays and 3 sacks. They've had 5 sacks allowed in 2 games. They're worried about the offensive line there, although Wanya Morris should be back for the game on Saturday. There's just a lot to me that I'm just kind of interested in and curious to see in Oklahoma in a game where, this was in the 50s, 60s, 70s, the great rivalry in college football, and it's certainly not that. But if there's one opponent that can, with all due respect to everyone they play in the Big Ten, if there's one opponent that can really bring out the best in Nebraska as a program, you figure it's got to be Oklahoma, right?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, absolutely. And you mentioned all the assistants going and players, kind of airing out the dirty laundry on Scott Frost. And Phil, you mentioned about how there must have been some stuff going on to get him fired this early. A lot of times when coaches get fired, you tend to take everything said with a grain of salt because, he's gone out of the building. Some people can talk to the media about, that maybe don't like him. The fact that Nebraska fired him this early with I forgot exactly how much money they saved if they waited till October 1st, but they saved themselves a ton of money in the buyout with how they restructured that contract. There must have been something, all of this stuff must have been pretty darn accurate. It must have been a really toxic place to be for them to pull the trigger on this. So I think they're going to play a lot more free, and it must be a happier building and practice field this week.
Do you know what Nebraska should have done for this game? Just to
brought in the corn kid from TikTok.
Body is bring back Bo. Maybe, yes, but also just Bo Pelini just sit on the sidelines and just give a pregame speech and just talk over the dead. I don't know if that would do anything, but if I'm Nebraska, I pull out gimmicks or something. I bring back famous players to give pump up speeches before the game, something just to be we have absolutely nothing to lose. Let's go out here and play out of our minds nuts. So I'm curious, the fanfare before the games is, like you guys said, I think it will be a looser environment. And I think the fans will probably have a couple crispy cool ones before the game, maybe a couple extra, just to really get themselves going. Because as a fan, you kind of look at this as hey, we got nothing to lose here whatsoever. Yeah. Let's just go and maybe get tanked and have a good time. So I'm expecting a raucous environment, and this should be just hopefully a fun game to watch throughout at least the first half. But I think this stretches into the third quarter. Again, I still think Oklahoma is going to come up on top with the players and the coaches that they have, but I'm anticipating a fun, good game, if nothing else.
Go ahead.
No,
I'm excited to say. I'm excited to learn about who Oklahoma is, because I like we've said it, all of us, but like we're talking a lot about Nebraska, how they're going to play. Like, we don't know really anything about Oklahoma from their two first games. Like, this is not that Nebraska's a great team by any stretch, but they're a Power 5 team that has looked okay at times this year, and just excited to see this is. It's hard to call it a measuring stick game, but a little bit of a barometer at where Oklahoma might be with their program, with all the turnover and change.
I'll just say this before we move on to the next game. As far as the buyout is concerned, you had to fire him now, because if you don't, when everyone knows it's going to happen, you're just telling your potential next coach that you're poor. Like, that's basically what it is. At that point, it's over. It's done. He's gone. You know it after you lose to Georgia Southern. Shout out to the boys from Statesboro. Shout out Coach Witt. My high school head coach is the associate head coach and cornerbacks coach there for the Eagles. He's an alumnus there. Oh, yes. But yeah, if you don't fire him now and wait till then, you're just saying we're poor. And I think
that's a fair counter.
That's what it is. Moving on to the next game, a 3:30 showcase game for the Pac-12 conference, and Lord knows that they and the team involved in this game needs it. Number 12 BYU at number 25 Oregon. 3:30 p.m. kick. Oregon, a 3.5-point favorite. The total's 57.5. Gunnar Romney, Puka Nacua, the wide receivers who accounted for almost a third of BYU's targets last year and missed the Baylor game. Still a game time, day-to-day decision, so we don't know anything there. Matt, what are your thoughts here as we get ready for what should be a very, very interesting physical game?
I mean, we're talking about a team in Oklahoma that we don't really know much about yet. I mean, Oregon is kind of right there. Like, we know two things about them. They are nowhere near as good as Georgia or any one of the top two teams in the country. And they are, good enough to beat up on FCS schools and bad teams. Like, that doesn't really tell us much of anything. And I think we're going to learn a lot more about them against the BYU team. They might not be spectacular. They're going to be a very tough team to play. They're going to be hard to play against. They're going to try and run the football. And if they have their 2-star receivers, they're going to have a little bit more of a dynamic offense. And we're going to learn a whole lot more about what Oregon can do. I lean towards the under in this game, especially if it's a game time decision for the receivers. You're looking at two guys. One of them, I think it was an ankle injury. You're not really sure the speed they're going to be able to play at. I don't see how this game gets to be, up close to 60 points, because I think what Oregon does up front on both sides of the ball, they're going to want to try and control the possession, control the play too. So I don't really know what's going to happen in this game, but I think we'll know a lot more about who Oregon is after this one, similar to how we'll know a lot more about Oklahoma after the Nebraska game.
Yeah, I like Oregon in this game. At Oregon, if it's at BYU, a different story. I think Oregon coming home after obviously a super rough first showing, especially I think with some of the wide receivers in BYU game time decision. BYU at 12 seems a bit high right now too. So I think this is a bit of a get right game for Oregon. I like the crowd at Autzen Stadium. That's like one venue that I wrote an article early this year on, like, places I wish I could go watch a game or places that Notre Dame should play. That just seems like an incredible venue. And I think Oregon fans at home are going to be absolutely insane for this game. I went to one Oregon game at Stanford a few years ago and yelled "Sko Ducks" until I couldn't breathe. So it was really fun. I'm going to be honest. And it also looks like Dan is wearing an Oregon hat right now too. So that's another omen.
It does. The Betsperts golf logo does look a little like Oregon. It's Betsperts golf hat, but does look like an Oregon O. I'll give you that.
So I'm throwing up the O for this game. I like Oregon. I think it's going to be, like Matt said, I think it's still going to be an under game. I like Oregon's defense a lot more than I like BYU's offense going into this game in terms of them getting right. Absolutely still cannot trust our good old friend Bo Nix from the West Coast. Bo.
Change the spelling.
If you would have changed the spelling, the game would have been, a lot closer versus Georgia. But yeah, I'm going to ride with Oregon -3.5 here. But Matt, I love your pick in the under, just because, again, Oregon's averaging 35.5 points a game right now, but we can't.
one with 70 and one with 3. Like it's and one of the 3. I mean, the 70 was against a nobody, and the 3 was against the best defense arguably in the country. So, like, they've played two games similar to Oklahoma. We just don't know anything about them. I'm assuming Dan's changing his shirt right now into something Oregon related, maybe BYU related, but I don't see
Close.
Dan having some Cougar stuff. There it is. I knew it was
Dan.
changing something. There it is.
Dan,
Don't have
nice. With the tag still on, that's mint.
No,
But
I didn't have
bring
time
it
to
on
read.
Oh,
It was on a hat hanger in the closet, and I didn't have a chance to pull it off the hanger.
Dang,
So.
I was kind of wishing that was like
it.
a collector's item hat that still had the tag on it.
No, I'm not that guy. If I buy a hat, I'm wearing it. Yeah, so kind of thinking about the BYU Baylor game, when I mentioned Nakua and Romney, they were still able to throw for 261 yards without their two best receivers in a game that was very physical against a very good defense. So, I mean, if Oregon's defense isn't up to the challenge and those two guys play, maybe that's something that BYU can take advantage of. Baylor, on the flip side, ran the ball on 41 of 60 first and second down snaps with a 51% success rate against BYU. So if the Oregon offensive line is as good as I think it can potentially be, that might be something that they can do to establish the line of scrimmage, take control of the game, keep the pressure off of Bo Nix. And I got to see if I have it here. One of Mickey Hill on the comments said, kind of like 2014 Ole Miss, which Bo do you get? Which is kind of the eternal question with the Bo Nix experience. But I will say this. He has the 16th best passing grade on play action passes in the country and has thrown 0 turnover worthy plays on those kinds of play action passes. So if they can establish the run and get him easy throws and play action, that's probably going to be their recipe for success. Total does seem a little high to me in this game, but that's basically where I am with this one. Do you guys have anything else you want to add, or do you want to move on to our next one?
I feel like it's a pretty big game for Dan Lanning.
It is.
Not that you expected to beat Georgia, but you got embarrassed in that one, and not that this is as big of a game as Georgia. And I know it's a tech power opponent, the top 15 team coming in. I know you're favored, but still, like this is a pretty big game. You need to go out and have a good showing, and if you lose a really tough one, that's a good game. So be it, whatever. But this is an important game for Oregon this season, and probably recruiting going forward with Dan Lanning too.
Yeah, I agree with that assessment. It's one of the phrases I use a lot with one of my buddies when we talk Texas football is proof of concept. How are you showing what it is that you're going to be able to do? And if you get beat soundly again here in 2 of your first 3 games as the head coach, and I brought up after the Georgia game, like it's a weird fit there to begin with, that there might be some like really bad things happening there. All right, our next one, speaking of teams we don't know really anything about, number 22, Penn State at Auburn, 3:30 p.m. Penn State, 3.5-point favorite on the road, 47.5-point total. I was kind of surprised just in doing some of my research on this to find out this is the first time a Big Ten team has ever played at Jordan-Hare Stadium, which seems a little bit surprising to me that none of the lower tier teams have ever played at Jordan-Hare.
Yeah, like it seems like a team like Indiana or someone should have gone there by now.
Absolutely, or maybe Purdue went down there at some point. But it's the first time a Big Ten team has played there, and in just a weird college football is the best sport kind of situation. The airport, the Montgomery County Airport, the runway is out of commission right now. They are repairing it currently. So Penn State has been spending all week trying to figure out where they're going to fly into. They're either going to fly into Columbus, Georgia, which is 90 minutes away, or they're going to try to get an Air Force base to allow them to land the plane at the Air Force base and take the trip down to Auburn. Not that matters at all as far as this game is concerned. Just one of those quirky college football things that
that's
we
pretty
know
awesome.
And love. Phil, Penn State and Auburn, what are your thoughts?
So I've been just to kind of be a dick. I am going to keep riding Sean Clifford, mostly just to text Matt about it. But fine. I think in kind of my heart of hearts, I just have a feeling that Auburn football is just dead, and 3.5 seems like kind of a lot to give, to be honest, for an Auburn team that just beat San Jose State 24-16. I think Auburn, they're kind of at the point where, again, there was so much turmoil in the offseason with them seeming like their coach was on the way out, and that was just such a weird situation that there's just a lot of negative energy around the Auburn football program right now. And again, I think their fans are just like, I think almost like hoping things go south so that they can just move on from this coach and get the next chapter and get like a sexier head coach hire, because again, they just not a fan of what's going on there right now, and they're non-competitive. And I think it's just a tough normally tough environment that's going to be tough for the home team to play in because there's just such a lack of excitement around the program. So I like Penn State again. I still believe in healthy-ish Sean Clifford. He was cramping his first game. He didn't get hurt. Can make some plays, and I think I don't look at the over/under. It's 47 points. So like Auburn's not going to score much. I don't think Penn State's going to score a ton. But like the over/under at point total is so low for this type of game when. Again, it's not like Penn State has a super elite defense. Also, a name that I love for Penn State, a guy who Notre Dame desperately wanted, was Nicholas Singleton, the running back, who put up a ridiculous amount of yards last week. I really like him to run wild, which is going to open things up for my boy Sean Clifford. And Penn State, this one's on my card, -3.5.
Yeah, I don't. Auburn's feels like Nebraska before they fired Scott Frost, but even in a worse situation. That I don't. I make fun of Sean.
It's a lot weirder than Nebraska.
But yeah, it's weird. It's like yeah, that's fair. But just in terms of it being a terrible situation, they haven't looked good in the 2 wins they have this year. TJ Finley still looks like he's terrible, and like I don't think Sean Clifford's very good, but he's better than TJ Finley. I mean, all Nebraska really has going for it is the run game, and Penn State's defense is probably going to be good enough to slow that down a little bit, to the point where they won't really even have to load the box. They could probably keep 6 in there and at least slow the run game down. And when you force TJ Finley to pass, like, it's just not going to go well for Auburn. I think they're kind of dead at this point, and I think they need to just pull the plug on Brian Harsin, move on, shake things up there. And I think Penn State probably wins this game fairly easily, something like a 28-10, something along the lines of that. Like, I don't see Auburn competing all that much in this one.
And I think even I think Penn State going into Purdue at night was a much more hostile environment than this will be.
100%. I agree. I think Auburn's dead.
I'm saying for the duration of the game. I think very quickly the air is going to get let out of this stadium.
I just want to move on because I'm offended at the notion. I disagree completely on this game. I think that a Penn State team with a quarterback that's unreliable on the road in a hostile SEC environment is a bad situation for them to be in here. One thing that I don't know how this is going to play out, but just a weird thing that I discovered, again, kind of looking through some of the notes this week, Penn State's defense has faced 44 rushing attempts total through 2 games this year, because Purdue doesn't throw the ball, and I already forgot who they played last week. I think it was Ohio. Didn't run the ball at all. Auburn ran the ball 41 times against Mercer, 38 times against San Jose State. They ran it 40 times last year against Penn State and Happy Valley. Tank Bigsby had over 100 yards. That game was a 28-20 Penn State win. They got a 4th down stop at the 2-yard line. And frankly, in that game, it was Sean Clifford was better than Bo Nix. But we're going to find out what we have in TJ Finley. There have been people who want to see Zach Calzada, which may not be the worst thing in the world, because if we're being honest, like, at least Zach Calzada has won big games or won a notable big game last year at his old school. TJ Finley has the same PFF grade as Tyler Buckner, so take that for what you will.
Good. TJ Finley in 2 games against Mercer and San Jose State has a touchdown and 3 interceptions.
Right. And so a lot of people want to see Zach Calzada in this game, but I think this is going to be the kind of game where you have to understand the Auburn experience, which is every time you expect Auburn to do anything, they face plant, and every time you expect them to face plant, they find out a way to play their best game. I think this is, again, going to be a tough environment. I think they're going to try to lean on the run game, and I think they're going to be able to wear Penn State down. I don't have it on my card, but this one, scream, take the underdog at home in this game here. But I don't have it on my card. I didn't have the courage and my conviction to stand by that pick, but I think that's the way that you go in that game.
I would have had Penn State on my card, but last year I had Mississippi State in that game. I think it was at Auburn, and they're up like 28-3, and Auburn came all the way back and won that game. So I've sworn off Auburn football games probably for the next couple of years.
Auburn exists in a world of chaos. They don't exist to be good. They don't exist to be bad.
That's a very true point.
To cause the most amount of chaos at all times in college football. Like, I was standing, cool story, bro. I was standing in the corner of the end zone where Chris Davis scored on the kick 6. Like, Auburn, weird things happen with
Auburn
that program.
thrives on chaos. That's a fair counter to me and Phil's argument.
And maybe they do just stink. Maybe they're just bad and everything's dysfunctional or whatever. But that's right where Auburn has them, right where they want them, if that's the case.
If this was a night game and Calzada was starting, I would have a different opinion on this. I'll say.
I actually think it being a day game helps Auburn more because I think the humidity, it's going to be 87 degrees at kickoff, which means it'll probably be about 100 degrees down on the field. I think Penn State, I think, was the team. It might have been someone else, but I think it was Penn State was practicing indoors and cranking the heat up to try to simulate that environment. It's a tough and it's unpredictable. We've never seen a Big Ten team play there. We have no idea.
Still can't believe that's
what that's gonna look like. Another game where we're gonna find out what two teams. That's kind of a prove yourself is kind of the
entire. We're gonna call it this week. Prove it week.
Outside of Michigan, I feel like by week 3 we'll know who a lot of people are because again, Michigan takes on another nobody this week.
Yeah,
so
I'm not sure we'll know who USC is yet either.
Yeah, but I
thought we might after this week with Fresno State, but I haven't really been impressed by Fresno. Like, I don't know if last week was Fresno State not playing well or Oregon State's going to be pretty good. We'll know who USC is after the Fresno State-Oregon State stretch.
I think at least we get a better sense than we would otherwise with a lot of the other ones. Like Michigan's a really good example of that for what it's worth. Speaking of the Mitten State, their arch rivals in East Lansing, number 11 Michigan State on the road at Washington, a 7:30 p.m. kickoff. The home team favored by 3.5, a 56.5 point total. Phil, you start us off here. What are you thinking with these two teams? As his internet is.
I am going to go with the unders. Matt, can you start until my internet clears up?
Sure. I think Phil.
Well, we're waiting for
Matt,
Phil's
internet.
Phil's talking about unders, and like I'm kind of there too. I don't think I've ever liked this many unders in a season before, but I know these two teams have been a little bit higher scoring than we might have expected them to so far this year. But like both teams haven't really played much yet. I think this is kind of a little bit of a feeling out game. I think we learned about both teams in this one. Michigan State, when they're doing what they want to, when they're playing these bigger games, they tend to do what they do best, and that's stick to the run and try and control the game through there and open things up for Peyton Thorne kind of through play action. I think that's kind of what you see here. And I know Michael Penix Jr. is off to a really good start, but like still don't fully buy into him yet. So I think Washington's going to want to establish the run, even though I think Kalen DeBoer has done a really good job there so far. So I think I'm leaning towards an under, but I think this one has a little bit of a feeling out process to it early on.
Yeah, I at night on the West Coast, that's tough for the Midwest boys. That's tough for the Midwest boys playing in the Pac-12 after dark game.
That's a late game.
I mean, genuinely, I know like people joke about like body clocks and stuff like that, but that's a very late game for Michigan State, which is on East Coast time. So this is a 10:30 body clock start game.
That's 7:30 Eastern. This is practice. Might as well be noon as far as the Pac-12.
Even then, a weird start time though. Like it's still a different. It's a weirder start time. Start games at 4:30
local time start game. Okay, well that changes that bit of nugget that I had right there. So sorry about that, people. But again, Michigan State. I was surprised that when I was looking this week, I was like they're 11. And like I know some things are in like the top 15. I just don't really know who Michigan is, but I like what Michael Penix has been doing. And on my dream stadiums, that stadium is like over the water looking out. Just in terms of stadium environments, I think this is going to be a great one. It's a good color matchup, a deep purple versus a deep green. I really like that, which it's going to be a good color game there. But I like Washington, not enough to put them on my card, which is why I'm going with the under because both teams just haven't really play anybody, and I think it's going to be an elevated defensive set that they faced entirely.
So once again, we're on the opposite side, and this is on my card. I am going to play the over in this game. Real quick housekeeping: Jaden Reed, who is Michigan State's best receiver, banged up against Akron with an undisclosed injury. They expect him to be good to go, but something to keep an eye on. So there's a guy who does a lot of college football analytics named Parker Fleming, Stats O'War on Twitter. I think he does a Bet US show. He has a metric called ECHL, which measures the number of quality possessions you have per game. A quality possession means you have a 1st and 10 across the opposing team's 40-yard line or score on a long touchdown play. So quality possessions. The Kalen DeBoer effect at Washington, I know against bad teams so far, but 87.5% of their offense have possessions have been quality possessions so far, but they only rank 88th defensively there. Michigan State is in the top 25 in Eckel. Their defense has been a lot better so far, but let's not forget this was a defense that could not stop anything last year in the pass game. The efficiency numbers defensively were a little bit better than the total raw numbers were, but I think they had the highest yards per game of any pass defense in the country, or we're in the near the bottom, was this Michigan State team. So on the road against a coach who is a good coach, and Michigan State has some guys, I think that we are underestimating how I think the reason that this total is where it is I think that people are underestimating how much better Washington's offense is going to be under Kalen DeBoer than it was under the Jimmy Lake regime last year. So I like the over in that game. That is on my card. And then the final big game of the evening, a late kick in College Station. For some reason I thought this game was earlier. Number 13 Miami and number 24 Texas A&M. A&M out to a 6.5 point favorite today because Xavier Restrepo, Miami's top receiver, who has 11 catches, 172 yards and a touchdown this year, is out indefinitely with a foot injury. Miami lost their top two receivers from last year's team, so they are thin at that position. And I don't think that games against Bethune-Cookman and a game against Southern Miss that you were trailing until there were 20 seconds. You were down 7-3 until there were 20 seconds left in the first half. Don't think we know a whole heck of a lot about Miami. My thoughts on this are I think that the A&M situation and the Nebraska situation are kind of mirror images here without the firing of the head coach, and that they can be pissed off at Jimbo Fisher and be angry at how things are going. But this is the kind of thing that I think is going to be galvanizing for the A&M community at large. I think Miami is walking into a hornet's nest of a game that I don't think that they're going to want to really hang with the Aggies in this one. I know A&M's offense is a complete disaster. This is if they're ever going to turn to Connor Wigman, their 5-star quarterback recruit. I don't know why it wouldn't be this week. And then my last note here from our friend Chris Felica, the Bear, since an upset win over a team from South Bend, Indiana in 2017 that shall not be named, ranked Miami teams are 1-6 straight up and against the spread against ranked opponents. They have the 6 losses by an average of 25.5 points per game. So again, like Mario Cristobal, this is a big moment for him in this program. That's another reason why 6.5, it's starting to get a little too rich for my blood, but like Mario Cristobal on the road without their top receiver, their offense was really, really bad against Southern Miss. I don't really like Miami at all here. I don't really want to bet on A&M either. What I will say is the ideal scenario for me as a bettor is A&M covers here, and FanDuel has them opened already as a 1.5 point favorite against Arkansas next week. Let's see A&M cover here, get that spread up a little bit so that I can hammer that Arkansas money line, because there's a whomping coming for Texas A&M at Jerry World next week, and they don't want that smoke that Arkansas is putting down. Matt, your thoughts on Miami and Texas A&M?
This is if we talk about two teams you don't really know much about, this is a total no play for me. I have no feel on this game at all. Like, I thought we kind of knew each team, and like you said, like Miami started out slow last week. Obviously, A&M couldn't do a darn thing offensively, but like I don't really know how this whole trolling of A&M this week is going to go for them. Like you said, it could be used as kind of a galvanizing rally cry for the fan base, the team, and I think the fact that it's at home at A&M probably leads towards a raucous environment, a backing up of the team, and a tough place for Miami to come in and play. I think I lean towards an under here. I know I keep saying unders. Like, I'm not going to touch it. I'm not going to play a card. I'm not going to play anything on this bet or on this game. Excuse me. I think I lean towards an under 44.5. I think I lean towards a Miami team total under at 19.5, especially if you can find that at 20. I think I like that. I think especially with the receiver injury, Miami loves to run the football. Mario Cristobal loves to run the football. I think that's what they're going to try and do. If Texas A&M stays with Haynes King, I don't think they're going to be able to move the ball a ton. I think they'll do some things okay. They'll be fine. They'll score enough points to probably win the game. But there's too many factors in this game, too many unknowns that I don't know enough about. I don't know how it's going to play out. So I lean towards an under. I think I lean towards a Miami team total under because I don't think Miami's quite ready for the moment yet. But again, total no play for me.
Yeah, no play for me, but I like I do like Texas A&M outright. I would honestly, it's not on my card, but I'd lean towards playing Texas A&M just straight money line there because again, don't trust Miami in these big environments whatsoever. And unlike the situation where I think, there's chances when big coaches underperform in, how in terms of what they're supposed to do and fans want them out, this is not a cry to get Jimbo Fisher out. I think this is a rallying cry for College Station. I think it is going to be, the environment is going to be absolutely insane, in which case I think a struggling Miami offense goes against a very good defense and shits their pants. It's just my general read on the situation. I don't love a lot of points in this game whatsoever. Again, Texas A&M, if they're going to make a change at quarterback, I don't know if Jimbo would have the guts to do that in this situation after a loss, because then it's like almost not trusting in his system, not trusting in his gut, not trusting in what he's going with. So I think it's a low scoring game, but I think it's a game where Miami limps off the field. Just in general. Like, I really don't think they're going to step up to this moment, but in terms of total point spreads, just staying far, far away from that. But I do like Texas A&M in this game because, again, Jimbo has played in a lot of big games in his career. He has won a lot of big games, and this is not going into the buzzsaw against a Alabama or a Georgia, or even an Arkansas like next week. This is a much softer team that he's going to be going up against that. Again, I think Miami's going to come in there like being like the U is back, and I think they're just going to get kicked right in the teeth.
I think that's a fair assessment. The under, man, that total ticked down.
It did. It was at like 47.5, I think, when it opened. And I was like, I wish I got it then. That we talk about getting lines early. This is one you wish you got early.
Yeah, I'd kind of want to be on the opposite side of that steam a little bit, but not to the tune of that. Like, if it comes down a little bit more, maybe I'll think about it. But that's all. I don't have anything else to add there.
I'm interested to see Tyler Van Dyke, by the way, this week, because that's a guy who had we talk about Miami as hype. Miami's always going to have hype, especially with the Cristobal hire. But Dan, you had a Tyler Van Dyke Heisman, preseason video, like a blog that you wrote. Like, people, like FanDuel, I think had him. He's like a top 10 Heisman favorite. He was a dark horse. I know Phil talked about it in the ACC preview. Like, I know he's playing without his best receiver, but he's got a running game that we've seen so far, granted against some bad teams. Like, this is a pretty big moment for a guy that people are saying is, a next very good Miami quarterback, and can he be the guy to lead him to some really good things? Like, this is a pretty big moment, pretty big test for him.
Absolutely.
Yeah, and it's like a game. Game last week where, like, again against Southern Miss, like, you should go out there and, like, really good quarterbacks should just like dice it up, and he throws one touchdown and one interception with a QBR hovering around 50, and so that's just not like what a Heisman caliber hyped up quarterback does. And so he's going into it against a significantly better defense. So it's again I'm putting in my name, like, learn about week. It seems like this is now the week for the majority of teams will have a good understanding of, like, okay, here's what they are, just because a lot of teams have come out with a pretty soft week 1 and 2 schedule, or in like situations like perceived soft schedules, or it's just like, again, I think with Notre Dame, we'll learn about them this week. With Miami, we'll learn about them. Texas A&M, how do they bounce back? So Oregon, Washington, there's a lot of teams that we're really going to have, I think, a better grasp of who they are, which is, I feel like usually by week 2 you have a pretty good idea, but does it seem this year that it's taking week 3, week 4 to really have any sort of clue who these teams are?
It does.
I don't know if that's abnormal. I mean, I don't know. I guess maybe after week 1, we haven't had, in week 2 and 3, we haven't had a ton of huge matchups. So, but I also think, man, I mean, we learned something about Alabama last week, and maybe to a lesser degree what Texas could potentially be, but we kind of had this sense of, once you get through that top 3, Alabama, Georgia, Ohio State, we didn't know what we had in anybody anyway this year. We didn't know who the 4th best team was going to be. Maybe Clemson, maybe somebody up, maybe a Michigan, who knows? Like, we have no idea. So maybe it's that there haven't been that many big, like, head-to-head matchups. I don't know. That's an interesting thought. Real quick, I don't have anything on this game, but since I guess we can consider it one of the other big games. LSU hosting Mississippi State. Let me bring it up real quick. I think it was still.
I love this coach matchup.
Mississippi State, a 2.5-point favorite on the road, 53.5 the total. I'll say, just my instinct this entire time has been, first, I don't know, Mississippi State, but statement win. Brian Kelly got to have this one, I think, right? He's just got to have it.
Yeah, this is a must win for Brian Kelly in my mind. Phil?
Yeah, Brian Kelly's normally a coach who wins these games you're supposed to win. And again, I think Florida State for me was I looked into that game as Florida State the favorite. I didn't see that as an upset by any means because I've been very high on Florida State. I go into this game and I think Brian Kelly at LSU, this is like a must-win game. And when Brian Kelly has been faced generally with must-win games, he has won them. When it's a game that he like a stretch win, he hasn't won them, has performed okay or just gotten by. But I think now, and he had more shit with the media this week, which he just can't get his foot out of his mouth with talking shit to a reporter who then just said, hey, if you will start showing up on time, if you start winning games, which I thought was hilarious. I would want to give that person a nice firm handshake. But at the same time, I do think Brian Kelly is, as much as it pains me to say, is a good college football coach. I never trust Mississippi State in any capacity ever. So I'm going to go with, I'm debating putting that one on my card as a late thing and can be convinced of it, depending on how my earlier card goes in the day.
I got nothing else to add to it.
I was high on Mississippi State early in the year. Like, I really like Will Rogers. I want to learn about week. I think we're going to learn a lot about Mississippi State this week. I'm not sure we're going to learn a ton about Brian Kelly because I think we know exactly who he is. We might learn more about who with his team this year, but I think ultimately he'll be a fine coach there. I think we learned something about Mississippi State this week and what that team can be this year.
I think that's a fair point again there. Moving on to our games that are a little bit under the radar. I'm going to go last on this one because mine is an exceptionally dumb reason why this is my under the radar game, but I love it nevertheless. So I want to go last. Phil, what are you looking at what's your under the radar game and why?
11 a.m. in Syracuse, New York. We have Purdue versus Syracuse. So
it's a big one for my guy, Aiden O'Connell.
It is, Matt. So I do believe in Aiden O'Connell. I think he's a good quarterback. Again, Syracuse is a team, and Dino Babers is a coach where I've just always been like, he is just vanilla as a coach, as vanilla can be. But so far this year, like Syracuse has played pretty good football. Like, not pretty good. Like they've looked good this year. They whooped up on a Louisville team that we thought was dead, and then that Louisville team went in and beat UCF, which was a good win for Louisville. So again, I think they're a team that prepares well. They handled their business against a bad UConn team. But again, this is going to be a fun game. So I really like Sean Tucker, the running back. I'm looking forward to his tweets regardless. Again, I'm going to push people to make sure to give him a follow on Twitter because he just gives these, as producer Dan said last week, he gives the Magic Johnson takes after his games where it's like, I am happy with my performance. And it's just enjoyable. So, and again, I think Syracuse from a quarterback perspective, like has been bad, but like Garrett Schrader has put up almost 600 yards and 4 touchdowns. Like, where is that coming from? Like, I don't know. And granted, it's been against, subpar defenses, but I still am up in the air about this game. But I, in a weird way, would love to go to and watch a game in the Carrier Dome because I just feel like it would be like I was going to a basketball game and then
apparently not the Carrier Dome anymore. By the way, I heard that
it's not the Carrier Dome.
It's something awful. I forgot the name. It's like some sort of
the JMA Wireless Dome.
It's the Carrier Dome.
They can call it whatever they want. Yeah, it's the Carrier.
That's like they changed the name from the Sears Tower to the Willis Tower like 10, 20, 15 years ago. It's the Sears Tower. Like exactly. we know what it is.
So, well, I'd love to go into the JMAWireless.com ESPN Bowl. And again, because I feel like I would like go there with like grab like popcorn, walk out and be like, this isn't a basketball game. And just like the coloring inside that stadium, it's a thing where they just have to fix the lights or do something. Because anytime you're watching a game and
they need to keep
the JMU Wireless.com stadium,
yeah,
it's
they need
so
to put not
weird.
a dollar.
For me, it's significantly worse than like the first time that I watched college football on Fox and like the Fox music was playing and they had the robots going and I was just confused because I'm a creature of habit. No matter how many times I watch a game and flip a game on in the JMU Carrier Dome, I look and I'm just like, this just doesn't feel right. So it's fun though, and it almost for me has sort of that like Evanston effect. But I think this game is actually going to be relatively loud. I have no idea what's going to happen. We're going to find out if Syracuse is like a above average team this year, which will be fun because again, I like when more teams are solid in the ACC and teams like Syracuse can like put up a fight because then they're the team on a random Saturday afternoon suddenly is like going down to the wire with Clemson. And with the ACC in the top tier of the ACC being decidedly average again this year, more middle of the road teams being more middle of the road makes those games much more entertaining because it gives someone the opportunity to upset Clemson and, at the end of the day, that's what I want to see. So this is a game I'm just excited to watch. Which again makes me a bit of a sicko. If you haven't picked up what I'm putting down, I love
does
these like
not.
just very average, non-enthusiastic from a casual fan perspective. Just gets my juices flowing.
Phil, you're
No,
talking to two guys who were
Yeah.
excited about Duke Northwestern with you yesterday. Like you're talking to the right, or last week. You're talking to the right people.
I don't think the uptick in Syracuse's offense is anything that's like surprising or not surprising because it is, but it's explainable. I think I mentioned it previously on the show. Their old offensive coordinator, Sterling Gilbert, he was with Charlie Strong at Texas and South Florida, did a terrible job at both of those schools, came to Syracuse, did a terrible job there. He got replaced by Robert Anai, who was the offensive coordinator last year at Virginia when they had a very good offense. Suddenly Syracuse's offense is very good, and suddenly Virginia's offense is very, very bad. More on that in a little bit. So I don't think it's a coincidence that good coordinators matter, and they seem to have figured out something. And I'm with you absolutely. I want to see what they can do against an uptick in the level of competition. I mean, they did beat Louisville in the season opener, but again, playing another good team, a team that can maybe match them play for play offensively. So that should be an interesting one. Matt, what are you looking at as your off the radar game?
I sticking with the learn about week theme here. We got first. I'm going with Texas Tech at NC State. Was really impressed with Texas Tech last week at home against Houston, coming away with that win. I think it ended up being a push. I think they were 3-point favorites. They won by 3 in overtime, but their offense looked very dynamic. Donovan Smith looked really, really good. I threw for 350. They ran for over 100 yards, which Texas Tech never really does. And they were able to spread the ball out. They have a bunch of different weapons on offense. I think they had 5 guys who caught 4 or more passes. They had 9 guys catch multiple passes. So it's not like they're heavily relying on 1 or 2 guys. I'm excited to watch Texas Tech's offense because I think it's going to be pretty darn good again. And this is their I won't say first big test because Houston was the test themselves, but they're going into a place against a ranked team, a ranked opponent in NC State that I know they won 55-3 against whatever FCS opponent or bad team they played last week, but struggled in week 1 against East Carolina. And East Carolina is a sneaky, tough place to play, I guess, but probably a game that NC State should have lost if ECU had somewhat of a kicker at all whatsoever. That's another team in the ACC that, looks underwhelming right now that needs to pick it up. And this is a chance for somewhat of a get-right statement kind of win for them. Devin Leary was another one of those sneaky Heisman, not winner dark horses, but could be a New York guy if they have the right year and beat Clemson. And was not impressed with them at all week 1. Have been very impressed with Texas Tech in that offense, and defensively they're looking at least a little bit better than they have in years past. So I'm intrigued to see that one. I really love watching Texas Tech's offense, obviously, and I want to learn more about NC State. Tough road environment though for Texas Tech to walk into.
Yeah, I think that Texas Tech, they're going to have to try to get NC State to play a game that NC State doesn't want to try to play.
Yeah. They're
going to have to try to make it
into
a track meet kind of game because Doran wants to be really conservative with Devin Leary, even though Devin Leary supposedly has Josh Allen arm talent. That was the Pete Thamel article before the season, just the puff piece that you get early in the year. But even if he's got a big arm, they don't really want to be the kind of team that's going to throw the ball around the yard a lot. So Donovan Smith is a guy who can make a lot of plays for Texas Tech. He did it last week. He's a high ceiling, low floor kind of guy. I mean, he's going to make some mistakes, and that's what NC State's going to depend on. But if they can't keep the Texas Tech offense from moving the ball on them, it's going to be a long day, and they're going to have to play a game that they don't want to. They're going to try to rely on that defense. I didn't end up pulling the trigger on it. I was so tempted to take Tech in that one.
ECU was able to move the ball through the air on NC State. I think it was threw for almost 300 yards, a couple touchdown passes. They threw 2 interceptions, and that's ultimately what kind of doomed them. But ECU was able to move the football through the air against NC State. And if Texas Tech's able to do that and gets NC State out of their comfort zone, that might be might be one to keep your eye on.
For sure.
What do you got, Dan?
So
been teasing this one all week.
I changed my pick on you guys.
Last couple days.
I changed my pick yesterday. So to switch it up on you guys, I'm going with Old Dominion at Virginia. And you might be wondering why that's my pick. Is it because Old Dominion already has a win over a Virginia team in the ACC this year? No, that's not it. Is it because Brennan Armstrong appears to be broken? He was 107th he's 107th in passing efficiency this year after being 22nd last year and was really bad against Illinois. No, that's not it. Are you guys familiar with Hudson the dog?
Don't tell me this is a dead mascot game.
No dead mascot. Not dead mascot.
Thank God, dude. I thought you were telling me a dog died.
No, very not. So
it's going to leave the podcast.
Old Dominion's coach is Ricky Ronnie, and God, I wish it was spelled Ronnie, but it's not. Ricky Ronnie's wife was at their son's lacrosse practice. And this woman named Brooke Corson, whose son also plays on that same lacrosse team, would bring a different dog to practice like every other practice. And she got curious and she's like, what's going on? Why are you bringing all these different dogs? So Brooke Corson is part of this organization called Mutts with a Mission, which they train service dogs. And so I think Ricky Ronnie's wife, I think it's Jen, could be mistaken, but Ricky Ronnie's wife falls in love and wants to adopt one of these dogs. And Ricky Ronnie's like, no more living things. They have 2 sons. They already have 2 aging dogs. He's like, no more living things. But she convinced him that maybe they can sponsor one of the dogs. So he's like, okay, that's fine. So one day, Brooke Corson brings a group of the dogs to the Old Dominion facilities during the summer to just hang out and run around and whatever. And the players love it and cool. It's great. And then she goes to leave and all of the dogs head back out the door with her, except for one dog who sticks around, hangs around the players, the equipment, everything, loves being around the players. The players love him. And that became their dog. That became their unofficial team mascot, Hudson the dog, named for a former SID at Old Dominion University. And that became their mascot. And if you will bear with me here for just 1 second as I try to do this seamlessly. So he has been on the sideline at all of their games, and
Phil's mouth is wide open.
I Googled image. Matt, that's what I
Oh my God.
That's what made my jaw drop.
So this is not cosmetic. The sunglasses do help protect his eyes, and the Crocs are also not cosmetic. The turf gets very, very hot at Old Dominion, as it will. It's Virginia in late summer, so it's hot. So they were looking for something to help protect all of the dogs' feet, and the dogs don't like shoes because they're dogs. But the lady Brooke Corson, she wears Crocs all the time. So someone thought it would be funny to see if dog Crocs existed. They do, and they're literally the only shoes that these dogs will wear. So Hudson the dog can be seen on the sidelines at Old Dominion games. But you know where he's not going to be on Saturday? On the sideline at the University of Virginia, who have a no service dogs on the field policy. So the University of Virginia is not allowing Hudson the dog to be on the field on Saturday. Your offense stinks.
Get that dog a skybox.
You just lost by 3 touchdowns to Illinois, and now you're putting it out into the universe that you're not going to let that dog. Look at that dog. Look at how cute that dog is. You're not going to let him on the sidelines. I don't want to put that evil into the universe right now if I'm Virginia. So if I'm Virginia, I'm changing the policy as quickly as I can to allow Hudson the dog on the sideline for this game, or else it's going to be a bad situation for them. The line right now is 8. I kind of liked ODU when it was at 10. I also didn't pull the trigger on that one. Maybe a Virginia team total under. I think it was north of 30. But let Hudson the dog on the field, Virginia, you cowards.
I'm disgusted, and I'm almost. I might just go bet the house on Old Dominion because I'm such a gut reaction better. But
that's the community card pick.
A patch or a sticker. Imagine they did a little sticker of Hudson on the back of their helmets. Oh my God.
I'm just saying.
They should.
The goggles, the Crocs, the cuteness of that dog. Hudson the dog does have his own Twitter page. You can go follow him at Hudson ODU on the Twitter machine. So go follow him. Moving on to our betting cards of the week, but very quickly before we get into each of our individual betting cards, I do want to throw out, I was digging through some stuff last night. I was actually waiting for a book to hang the stupid prop bet or the stupid bet that I wanted to make this week, which I finally can officially make. So it is officially on the card, but surfing through all of the offshore books, Bet Online had one that I was really intrigued by. So I'm going to throw it up here now. Largest margin of victory this weekend: Alabama against Louisiana, Monroe, Tennessee against Akron, or Michigan against UConn. Bama plus 140, Tennessee plus 180, Michigan plus 200. Again, Louisiana, Monroe for Bama, Akron for Tennessee, UConn for Michigan. Who would you take if you had to take someone there?
I think I lean towards Tennessee. I want to take either Tennessee or Michigan because of the value. I think I lean towards Tennessee. Just I don't really. The offense is a little bit more high powered, I guess, but and you have a quarterback in Hendon Hooker who's made a bunch of starts as opposed to JJ McCarthy, who's really just kind of made the one. So I like Tennessee, but if you told me you're taking the Michigan one, I wouldn't tell you you're wrong either.
Yeah, I'd lean towards Michigan on this side just because I think Tennessee, coming off of a very, very heavy, hard physical game in Pittsburgh last week. I'll talk about it on my card, but I think they absolutely blow at Akron. Akron stinks to the Capital S this year. But I think it's a situation where Tennessee will get up by a pretty significant amount in the first half and then let the gas off the brakes a little bit, simply because it's like, hey,
Like the Ball State game.
Yeah, because especially like we're coming off of a physical game, and the stretch that we have coming up is absolutely brutal. So if we get ahead, it's about preserving our guys and making sure they're healthy, so we're not limping in or going down anybody else. So that's why I think, again, I'm on my card, I'll talk about the Tennessee under, but that's just I think a coaching philosophy that should hold up to be true, especially with Akron's just miserable offense. So I'd go Michigan here, especially in JJ McCarthy's first start. He's going to want to put up big numbers.
I'd actually probably go Alabama. I think you're inching close to the exact point about why I wouldn't take Tennessee, Phil. Not just Pittsburgh last week, but their next game's Florida. I think they're going to get up big and pull the plug pretty quickly there. SP Plus actually has Tennessee covering by half a point, so I'm going to stay with there. I thought it was funny, just an interesting prop there. I have 5 on my, so I went 3-0 the first week, 1-3 the next week. So I've added more games to the card, which I have not learned my lesson. I have 5. Matt, how many do you have?
I have 9.
Phil, how many do you have?
Stayed at 9.
That's 5.
That's
Matt,
not bad for me. I didn't go up.
Yeah, fair. Matt, rip. You don't have to rip through them. Give us your.
I'll rip through most of them because some of these games we've already talked about. I do like Air Force minus 14.5 tomorrow night at Wyoming. I think Air Force runs the ball really, really well. They've played some Power 5 teams so far this year, and they've been dominant. That offense brought back a whole lot of talent from last year, and I think we saw Wyoming against one good team in Illinois who ran the ball okay, and Illinois absolutely dominated. So I like Air Force minus 14.5 in that one. I'm going with Nebraska plus 11 and the over 65.5 in that game. We talked about that one as well already, so won't get too far into it. Purdue, Syracuse over 59.5. I think we see a lot of points there. Taking Minnesota minus 27.5 against Colorado. Colorado stinks. Like they've played 2 Power 5 opponents so far this year at TCU and Air Force. No, Air Force winning Power 5 opponent. I'm sorry, and they've just been blown out in both games. I think that they've lost by 30 or more in each of them, or 20 or more in each one. Excuse me. They lost 38-13 to TCU, so not quite 30 there. Big math guy. Going with the Nevada Iowa under 38.5. I think Iowa wins that game like 17-3 or 21-3, something like that. I think they dominate the whole way, but they also just don't score much because they're Iowa. BYU Oregon under 57.5. Baylor minus 29.5. This was my double dead mascot game. They lost their mascot in the offseason. And this is Dan. There's probably no way you would have seen this because you're not located in Chicago, Phil. I'm not sure you saw it on Twitter, but Jim the Bear at Brookfield Zoo died at age 27 today. I know he's not technically at Texas yet. Take your hat off. It's also why I'm taking the Bears money line this weekend at that Green Bay, but I think it's a double dead mascot game there. So I'm going with Baylor minus 29.5 against Texas State. Also, really why I like that game. Texas State is a really bad football team. They got they've lost to Nevada pretty badly earlier this year. I'm going with Baylor. I think they bounce back after BYU game. I think they are very, very well coached, and I was incredibly impressed with them in that loss last week. And then, Phil, I'm with you on the Tennessee Akron under 66.5. I don't think Akron scores very much. I think Tennessee scores a lot in the first half and then takes the foot off the gas.
Hell yeah.
Phil, what do you got?
I have Florida State -2 tomorrow night. Again, I think
Big Knowles guy.
I've been a big Knowles guy, and I'm going to keep riding that train. I think Louisville is decidedly average. And even though the game is at Louisville, I think, again, Jordan Travis, I love him as a quarterback more than an athlete. He is a really good college quarterback, and I am riding with my Knowles. I like Penn State -3.5, if not only just to mess with Matt and Sean Clifford. I think that they go in and silence the ruckus. First time Big Ten in SEC or Big Ten in Auburn Stadium. I am going with Oregon -3.5. We talked about that. Tennessee Akron under. I got that at 67.5. Simply because I think they're going to get up early and pull the plug, and I don't trust Akron's offense enough against Tennessee's second string to really do much of anything. As they are, again, they barely pulled off a win versus an average FCS St. Francis team and got absolutely bad. Yeah, they're bad. They're bad. Sorry, Zips. Sorry, Zips. I got a couple friends who played for the Zips, and again, tough settling there.
And then the final Charlie Fry's Akron Zips.
Yeah. And this was definitely a gut reaction to my Holy Cross Crusaders, but I got Coastal -14 against Buffalo until I did some research and found out that Coastal is really not very good. I like Grace McCall. So I put it on my card. So I'm going to leave it on there I'm not going to, it's on there. So I've already bet the game. So I'm going to stick with that because that was my gut pick. And I feel like if I went against my gut, that's bad juju. Part of me is thinking about, I'm not taking it though, but maybe I will, who knows, putting up, betting Cal plus 10.5 to do a reverse double jinx for Notre Dame. So if Notre Dame doesn't, yeah, right. But I did see Notre Dame come out with new green jerseys this week. It is Notre Dame Irish wear green this weekend. They put same green jerseys, put white names on the back, which I think look very fresh. It's a little bit of a different take on it. I like Notre Dame to rebound this week, but again, I'm thinking about emotionally hedging it and doing a double reverse jinx just to bet on Cal and throwing that money down the toilet. It'd be my sacrifice.
That's money well spent.
So you know what? I'm throwing Cal. I'm doing that publicly. So my public sacrifice is going to be Notre Dame's win. So I'm going Cal plus 10.5 for my emotional and well-being double reverse jinx bet of the week.
I love a good happiness hedge. Big fan of that. And that's not what Texas was, Alabama was last week. That was just, it was very wrong.
No, I think we all kind of thought that was the smarter bet last week.
Happiness hedge is one of my favorite things to do in sports. And I'll just say this. The Notre Dame green jerseys are one of the coolest things in college football, and wearing any kind of shade of green jersey against Cal, I'm not on board. You got to save that for somebody who's good.
In years past, they would have done it for a big opponent, or senior day, which both of those I get fine. Understand? It's
right.
Interesting decision to bust it out this early.
Absolutely.
Counterpoint though, this is a must-win game for Notre Dame. So in terms of needing some hype, again, week 3 Cal. It's again, they need some extra juice in this game after losing to Marshall last week. Cal's defense is good. Cal's offense is not good. But again, they're very, very bad. So again, I do like Notre Dame in this game. I like Drew Pine to play a good game. But again, I think the green jerseys are kind of a must at this point because this is a big win against Cal in week 3 for the Notre Dame Fighting Irish.
Man, that 40.5 is super low, and like there's no way it's gonna get there. Right? Like how do those teams combine to score 41 points? I don't know. Anyway, mine, I accidentally wrote down 56.6, which is not a thing in college football. So I brought it up earlier. Michigan State, Washington over 56.5. Western Kentucky plus 6.5 at Indiana. Indiana was down 14-0 last week at halftime to Idaho. It was not very good. I don't think Indiana is very good yet. Western Kentucky probably not either. They struggled with Austin Peay in week 1, but look, sometimes you get peed on. They beat up on Hawaii the next week, and they had last week off to get ready for this game. Bailey Zappi gone. Zach Kitley gone. They're doing the OC by committee thing with 3 different guys responsible, and their new quarterback, Austin Reed, won the Division II National Championship a couple years ago as the quarterback at West Florida. Also provided the quote of the summer, quote, "I'm going to throw it around the yard. I'm going to make a couple of throws that you might clench your butthole when I make that throw," end quote. So that should probably be closer to –
that's what college football's about.
Yeah, it should probably be closer to 3.5, and 6.5. So give me Western Kentucky there. I am laying an extremely stupid number. I'm laying Rutgers minus 17.5 on the road at Temple. Back in the State University of New Jersey as a 17.5 point road favorite. What could go wrong? The game's at the Link in Philly. No one is going to care. And Temple, they are bad. They got shut up
at the helm.
Oh man, okay. I was going to ask that as a trivia question, but Phil knows the answer to it already. They got shut out by Duke. They got 16 points thanks to 2 short fields and a safety off 3 blocked punts by the same player last week against a bad FCS opponent, Lafayette, that lost 35-10 to Holy Cross last season, for those of you wondering. They did bench DeJuan Mathis, the Georgia transfer. Can't believe that guy started games at Georgia at one point. They finally benched him for E.J. Warner, as Phil mentioned, the son of Hall of Famer Kurt Warner, but the offense wasn't very good. Temple is just not good. Rutgers is not great either, but Temple is just very, 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 very not good. This one is a principal play. There's only a WinBet is the only book that has this one open right now. I don't care if it stays this number at a book that I have legally in my state, or if it shows up on an offshore. I'm betting it. But the Bison -1 at Arizona all day, every day. North Dakota State against an FBS team. They've won 6 straight going back to 2010. 5 of which came against Power 5 opposition. Don't care that it's at Arizona. Give me the Bison. Here's the most North Dakota State thing that you need to know, and it is the most North Dakota State thing imaginable. They returned 9 of their top 10 offensive linemen this year. So
that's pretty good.
North Dakota State, they're going to win that game. And then I've teased it all week. It is the dumbest bet that I've given out on this show, and I don't know that I'm going to be able to top it. But have either of you given out a parlay yet as an official bet?
No, we've done all we've done is prize picks, which is not parlays, but
not
the
official
closest
parlay.
thing to it. Not a parlay, but closest thing to it.
I have a parlay for you guys, and I'm going to ask a question. Do you remember what 2 teams I said I was sick of on Tuesday?
Nope.
No.
I am sick of Wisconsin and I am sick of Iowa. However, this weekend, give me the New Mexico State first half team total under 0.5 point, parlayed with the Nevada first half team total under 3.5 at plus 135 at Bovada. Again, New Mexico State first half team total under 0.5 point.
Beautiful.
Nevada first half team total under 3.5 points at Bovada plus 135. New Mexico State was their first half team total in the season opener against Minnesota was also 0.5 point. That under hit. Neither one of those teams is going to score unless it is on a defensive play. So there you go. Western Kentucky plus 6.5. Michigan State, Washington over 56.5. Rutgers minus 17.5. North Dakota State minus 1. And I can't say that parlay again because I'm confused. But there you go. That's my card. What do we say? We put some prize picks out there in the world to wrap
Before
up the show.
Before we get to the prize picks, whoever had minus 1.5 for butthole clinching references with the overhit in the show today.
Yeah. I mean,
lock of the week.
So who wants to start with should we shout it out on Tuesday?
First up,
once again, pat ourselves on the back. Easy.
That hurt my shoulder a little bit.
Yeah. Matt needs to stretch before the show, apparently.
I do.
Easy peasy lemon squeezy winner, no doubter. Phil, give us your leg to start us off here.
So I'm having a fun one. So Spencer Rattler minus 8.5 yards rushing against Georgia. So again, I'm still not that down on Spencer Rattler. I'm not up on him, but I'm very.
Phil loves bad quarterbacks.
I love bad quarterbacks. Sue me. I like big name quarterbacks, but who've underperformed wildly. But I think in this case, just watching him try to scramble from sideline to sideline with Georgia's defensive line and linebackers, I just don't think there's a way. And I think they get down a lot early. And I think they're going to be throwing the ball a lot. And I think Georgia's first string, second string, and third string defensive line and linebackers are just going to be too much to handle. I think Spencer Rattler puts up a decent stat line in terms of like total yardage, simply because he's going to be throwing the ball so many times late in the game. But I think he gets sacked a shitload. So I'm taking that. It's going to be a fun one to watch because it can get ruined in one play, but it also can get gained in one play. Like late in the end of the game, he takes a 10-yard sack while trying to scramble around and make a play. So Spencer Rattler minus 8.5 yards rushing.
Matt, what do you got?
I'm going with Caleb Williams over 20.5 completions. I think he's gotten to 20 and 19 so far this year, but both in games where, second half he's either been pulled or they've slowed down significantly, just played the clock control game. I think Fresno State's going to at least score enough early with USC where he's going to have to be throwing decently, running the offense into the third quarter. He's been as efficient of a quarterback as there is in college football this season. So I think that's a low number for him. I think he hits that over with fairly ease Saturday against Fresno State. So going with Caleb Williams over the 20.5 completions against the Bulldogs.
I am going with Anthony Richardson over 50.5 rushing yards against South Florida. Anthony Richardson cannot throw the ball. He is not very good at throwing the ball. We learned that last week against Kentucky. However, he can run the ball, and he can run the ball very successfully. And you know what South Florida can't do? Well, South Florida can't really do anything, but they don't stop the run very well. They're giving up 240 yards per game, 6.23 yards per carry this year. So I would expect Florida just to try to run the ball, make life as easy on Anthony Richardson as possible. And against a team that can't stop much of anything, I would expect Anthony Richardson to have a big, big day against a South Florida team who might be the next team in the market looking for a head coach if they continue to play as poorly as they do. Matt, do you want to do our community pick?
We do have a community pick. I also, after I make that, want to throw one more out at you guys and see what you think about it. But the community pick we came up with is Ronnie Bell over 4 receptions against UConn for Michigan this week. He's their best receiver, one of, if not the best. He had 6 receptions in J.J. McCarthy's debut, so it seems like they might have a little bit more chemistry there than him and Cade McNamara. McNamara liked to spread the ball around a little more. We have his over 4. I think he kind of cruises that, probably gets it in the first half.
Love it. What's your also UConn is 111th in pass efficiency defense, which
there you go. So you guys know how many
Not good.
passing yards Haynes King had last week at home against Appalachian State? And I'm scared of this one because I said we were staying away from this game. But you know how many passing yards? How many yards he threw for at home against Appalachian State? 97.
97.
They're playing Miami, who, again, we're not super high on Miami, but they're probably a better defense than Appalachian State. Even so, even if they're not playing all that well, I don't think Haynes King is going to throw the ball around the yard. His passing yards total is 240.5. I don't know if I want to add that to the community pick. That's why I wanted to bring it up here. But I was scrolling to find I wanted to see Caleb Williams' passing yards too before I locked in the reception. His was a little too high, but Haynes King's right above him. 240.5. Oh wait, you know what? That's pass plus rush yards. Screw it. We're over. Nope, I'm out.
The other thing I would say is
still seems high.
It seems high. I don't think Miami's game plan is going to be the same. Obviously, no shit. Miami's game plan is not going to be the same as Appalachian State. It's like I said the other day, they ran 38 plays on offense. They're not going to be able to throw it. They just didn't have the ball to throw it. Haynes King's
pass yards total is 218.5.
Gotcha.
Still,
he had 200 and it's still a lot. He had 292 against Kent State last year, and he had 364 against Sam Houston State, and then 97 against App State, against the only team he's ever played.
Yeah, the only good team.
It seems high to me.
It's not
high,
as
but
last week's Riley Leonard was no brainer. This is not a no brainer enough to add as the community pick. So let's stick with Ronnie Bell.
I think I'm going to stay away personally. I don't know, Phil. You in agreement?
I love the Ronnie Bell catch total as a community
pick. There it is. Then Ronnie Bell over 4 receptions, Caleb Williams over 20.5 receptions, Anthony Richardson over how many rush yards was it, Dan?
50.5. I'll send you all this later.
Phil, I already forgot your pick.
Spencer Rattler minus 8.5 yards.
Spencer Rattler minus 8 yards. Yours is the most fun pick. I'm not sure how I forgot it. What I am sure how I forgot it. My memory stinks, and I got hit in the head a lot. I'm good. If you guys are good, send it out here. We'll see you guys next week, and good luck with your bets.
Yeah, for me, for Matt, for Phil, and for Hudson the dog. Good luck. We'll talk to you on Tuesday.
That's